My methods are deceptive, but the mission, it never was. Without the me, without the TVA, everything burns.
And what are you so afraid of?
Me.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is my review of Ant-Man Quantumania, the last film in the trilogy, and we don't really know if it's the last film because they're talking about making an Ant-Man 4, which I'm not sure if that will work. One thing that I have to say is fans of the previous Ant-Man movies might want to know that his sidekicks from the security firm, ex-con security consultants, his best friend Louise, none of them are in this movie. And it's simply because 90% of this film's location is in the quantum realm. Now that's actually a good thing in the way of Thor Ragnarok and the cosmic side of Guardians of the Galaxy. That we're presented with a lot of aliens and they're diverse and well presented in their makeup, and I really enjoyed that. I really respected that. These guys have to come up with new types of aliens and humanoids all the time, and these choices they had really worked well. We also learn more about Janet Van Dyne's previous 30 years in this film. And some of it was good, some of it's funny, and there's a few surprises in there as well, in that she was friends with Kang for a decade before she turned on him. But the fallout from her coming back to Earth is that she left people in the quantum realm at the mercy of the Conqueror, which was an absolute bloodbath. Now, Quantumania was billed as our first real intro into Jonathan Majors' Kang, the time-traveling warlord who will function as the final boss for the next 3 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for me, if he didn't work in this film, it would have failed. Because, you know, you got to set the bar to a certain place and then ride that wave. So I'm happy to say that while this wasn't in the top 10 of Marvel films, Kang really does show up. He really shows his level in terms of being the big bad. My only gripe is, we've met 5 versions of Kang now, and he's still not giving us a reason why he's doing this. This might make some non-comic book fans sort of lose focus and lose interest in this, because at this point, he feels like a person who's just thrown in there for the Avengers to fight. But in the comics, he cannot rule in the 31st century because his future world is dying. And so he decides to take on a universe earlier in a timeline that is more fertile, and thus we have our planet Earth and the universe we live in now. So by all accounts, in the real world, those with tech are considered the smartest and the most dangerous people, right? Everyone talks about how Tony Stark is dangerous. You know, he came off with his path of creating weapons of mass destruction and used his knowledge for good. He tried to do too much good with Ultron and that nearly blew up in his face. But with Kang, well, he's the most dangerous person in the multiverse simply because the Kang variants are literally the reason for the first multiverse war. Yeah, the multiverse was cut down to a single timeline because of that war. If the multiple Kangs are allowed to exist, they will literally destroy existence. So that's why all of that is happening. But of course, we all know from the Loki TV series that this is the war that was started by this version of Kang, who was banished into the quantum realm. And when Janet goes into his mind in this film, she bonds herself with the engine and then starts to see flashback of his past. We get the chance to look at his reasons why, and instead, we get to see more bloodshed of him just wiping out worlds, but it doesn't explain the reason why. It's kind of different in the comics that way because, you know, while we've heard of the Council of Kangs, but we only really ever see the Avengers fight in one version, which is Kang the Conqueror, although many exist. So this could be surprisingly good for the movies. The fact that you're branching more out into the Council of Kangs. And at the end of this film, in the end credit scene, we do meet the people who imprisoned him. The Council of Kangs, and they looked to be governed by 3 distinctive versions of Kang. The Ramatut, the Egyptian Pharaoh, Immortus, the most oldest bearded version of Kang, and the Scarlet Centurion, although there was nothing scarlet about him, he was wearing a blue energy suit with that sort of quantum energy. But the most powerful variant of all is Immortus. He's a variant so powerful that he was able to take control over the most troublesome version of Kang, the Conqueror, and lock him away in the quantum realm. Now, in the comics, Kang's original identity was Nathaniel Richards, a 31st century scholar of sorts, who was a descendant of Reed Richards of Fantastic Four. In this instant, in the last credit scene, we see the TVA and Loki travel into the past to meet Victor Timely. Think of him as H.G. Wells. Remember the guy who wrote the 1866 novel, The Time Machine? You've all seen the film. Now, Victor Timely is an alias first used by Kang the Conqueror when traveling to the year 1901, where he also starts Timely Industries, which eventually produced some of his time travel equipment. Now, the Easter egg here is in real life. Timely Comics was the name of Marvel before they changed their name. Now, think of it this way, guys. In the MCU, it's very possible, now, stay with me, guys. It's very possible that Victor Timely could be He Who Remains, the version we saw in the first season of Loki. Wouldn't it make sense, though? I think it would. If Loki manages to figure out just who Victor Timely is, knowing that the timeline will reset itself if Victor Timely helps them, there could be a good chance that the town of Timely and Wisconsin itself would play a role in the lead up to Avengers Kang Dynasty film. Now, I think that would, because at some point, He Who Remains won, right? He laughed and he said to female Loki, "You can stab me through the heart, history will just repeat itself." So that's the reason why he was laughing. He wasn't bothered, wasn't concerned, because it's almost as if he knew that he would go back in time to repeat exactly what he did to win the war, get Kang the Conqueror locked away, and sit right back in that chair at the end of time, just like where he was in the first place. So that's what I think anyway. We have to understand that everything He Who Remains said in the Loki series was true. He Who Remains, who is a Kang variant, who created the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, Loki eventually learned that the timeline was naturally chaotic. So if we left everything alone and we killed He Who Remains, which female Loki did, the timeline will revert to a chaotic multiverse, which is what's happening right now. So it was He Who Remains that fixed all of that into a singular point. However, the potential to create a Nexus event was still a danger to reality. So now that's the reason why we had the Spider-Man, the 3 Spider-Men and all of that stuff. So establishing the TVA, which is what He Who Remains did, to prune branches before another multiverse could spawn, was the key to keeping us all safe. So we have female Loki to thank for all of this. And now all of creation is in jeopardy. So is Kang really dead? We saw him get sucked into the engine at the end of the film. And my answer to that is, was Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket, dead after being confronted by Ant-Man in the first movie, when we saw him shrink into nothingness, subatomic levels, swallowed by the microverse? No, he wasn't dead. In fact, we find out what happened to him in this film, as the trailers really showed us him anyway when we saw Mordok, that he was found by Kang a mechanical suit to form around his messed up body, dubbed the mechanized organism designed only for killing, or Mordok as an acronym. Now, Darren Cross spent 10 years serving under Kang, and honestly, let me just deal with that part of the film first. I thought this part in the film was really silly. Firstly, the CGI was, you know when something looks so wrong, you look at it and you think, what? It was hard to look at him in the way they tried to squash his face into that helmet. It just never looked right. I agree towards the end of the film it looked slightly better, but he was the butt-in joke that serves for comedy in this film. He's incompetent and bankrupt from what happened with him being Hank Pym's protege, and now he's gone. He's dead. For me, it's just a waste. They could have done so much more with the character, but he's gone. So I think there's a wasted opportunity there. But to Kang, no, I still think he's alive. Although Immortus did say otherwise. Immortus did say he's gone, he's dead. I guess if you add in Kang's tech capabilities and the history of him being unkillable, you probably get the picture there, that there might be a reason why he comes back. And there's a reason why he was stuck there in the first place. And, you know, because he could not be killed. Immortus and the other guys could not kill him. That's why they locked him away in the quantum realm. Now, even Scott's internal monologue at the end of the film, we see him walking on the high road, questioning Kang's fate. You know, hold on, he might not be dead. And that scene was funny because he knows how comics work, just like the rest of us. I thought that was a really nice monologue there. But just imagine if they went with the same idea from Captain America Winter Soldier. Instead of the inherent stupidity here, he could have been a meaningful part of the story, because we all thought MODOK was originally in that Captain America Winter Soldier film. But they've changed it to this, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, this guy even has his own TV series, right? So you go to Disney Plus, MODOK has his own TV show. So for him to have this kind of narrative in a movie, it didn't work. But one thing that worked in the film was Hank Pym. His MCU presence hasn't really been that fantastic, but in this film, he shows why he was an original founder of the Avengers. People forget that, guys. He's the second smartest man alive behind Reed Richards. He's smarter than Tony Stark, T'Challa. Well, what should I say, Shuri, because they didn't really show T'Challa being smart, although in the comics he is he's the 8th smartest man in the world. But in the MCU, they kind of prime Shuri to be the smarter one and the person that builds all the tech. And then obviously Bruce Banner. So Hank Pym is smarter than all of those guys. A scientist who focused on the development of a technology that scientists were unable to replicate. Pym particles. He has tremendous knowledge and unmatched understanding in several fields of science. But in this film, we see him make use of evolved ants with 1,000 years of knowledge. And this is why his protege Darren Cross went crazy. He could never achieve what Hank did. So, I like the joke where both Janet and Hank, both of them were talking about they had needs in those missing 30 years. I thought that was quite funny. But let's go on to Cassie Lang. Did she work or didn't she work? I thought the casting was spot on. She's 17 years old now, guys. Outspoken advocate and a quantum mechanics whiz who's beginning to follow her father's footsteps. In many ways, more than one. And they didn't really show Maggie. They didn't show her mom and the stepfather. And again, 90% of the film was in a quantum realm. But she's also very loyal to her family and so much like her dad in many ways. And this is the Stature version of her character, not the Stinger from the comics. The Stature is the giant man variant and Stinger is the Wasp variant. So in the comics, her abilities are fueled by her emotions. She grows when she gets angry and she shrinks when she feels guilty. But the MCU isn't doing that because the suits are what's giving them the ability to change sizes. So I kind of get that. But overall, this film wasn't as bad as Doctor Strange and Thor 4. In fact, I found it really entertaining. It felt like, you know, those old sci-fi TV films and series like Inner Space, Land of the Giants, Lost in Space. You know, you had Cassie, her dad, grandparents, and it really made a good family dynamic, which I think is missing in most films. I know you guys have Lost in Space on Netflix at the moment, and that's really, really enjoyable. And this kind of meets that head on. The issues in the complexities didn't really help the viewers, though, and I think that's where the film loses a few marks. For example, the casual fan who doesn't read comics, or doesn't even keep up with the Disney Plus TV shows, this would be a very confusing film. And I wish they took a couple of minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, just to recap the events of what's happened, especially in the Loki TV series. I even heard a person leaving the cinema asking why Loki was even in the end credits when he's supposed to be dead. So that person hadn't even watched the Loki TV series. And there's a lot of you out there that haven't. Which is funny, because the second Loki from the Avengers Endgame movie is now the Prime Loki. He's the one that has seen everything. He's seen the mistakes the original Loki made, which caused him to his death. He saw that he bonded with his brother Thor. He's seen all these different things. And that's what's made him change. He doesn't want to be that guy anymore. But I also heard that they talked about changing the ending. They basically had a different ending to this one. And that Ant-Man was supposed to be stuck in the quantum realm come the end of the film. But then they did reshoots. And no, he comes home. Now, I felt there could have been higher stakes if he was lost there. He could have helped the natives trying to rebuild. And also, remember, he was one of the main reasons why the Avengers won in Endgame. Well, him and the rat that got them out in the microverse anyway. But Scott is a character who I'm very invested in because he's the little guy. He's the one that people don't fear. But in this film, he shows just how much of a hero he can be. When I saw Scott grow big in previous films, it was more for comedy relief than anything else. You know, you saw him confusing. There was the airport fight where Spider-Man said, remember Star Wars and treat them like an AT-AT. Yeah, that doesn't exist in this film. In this film, he's Godzilla. I mean, he just kicks butt. He looks very powerful. And also, the ants have leveled up big time. I talked about them being having 1,000 years of knowledge and experience. And he's seen what Hank has done with the ants. And he's really bought in now. He knows now that the ants are his way forward. And I felt like in the future, he will rely on them a lot more. I mean, he's coming out of this film a very different and more powerful and a confident version of Ant-Man. And for that, I'm going to give this film a 7.8 out of 10. So the Council of Kangs, guys, they congregate. The leaders discuss the fate of the exiled one, which was Kang the Conqueror. And they warn the Council of Kangs that the MCU's heroes are meddling with the multiverse. Hence, there's going to be another war. So they say that they need to stop wasting time. And they have called all the Kangs together for the next step. This is war. So overall, guys, look, I kind of enjoyed it. Was it Marvel top 10 movie? As I said, no. Was it out there in the range of phase 1, 2, and 3? No. Was it better than the majority of films in Marvel phase 4? Yes, definitely. I would definitely put this ahead of Doctor Strange 2 and Thor 4. But this film kind of is what Marvel needed. To be honest, Black Panther 2 is what Marvel needed because that kind of put them back on the rails after a poor selection of films. What this film does is it steadies the ship. It builds the foundation for the Kangs. It kind of lets us know what's at stake here. And I think that that's what we needed to build a foundation to take this Kang Dynasty war forward. My only issue is there's a number of people out there that are not as invested in Marvel as a lot of people. And as these films go on now, we're already hearing who on earth is Kang because they haven't watched the Loki TV series. Now, season 2 of Loki is coming. So I guess people have got stuff to binge watch. You got to binge watch Loki season 1. And then the Quantumania film, which by the time April comes, it will be on Disney+. So there's a way that people can get back into it. But right now, at this point, some people watching this movie will just be completely confused. So that's my review, guys. Let me know your thoughts and leave your comments in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you guys in the next one. Peace out.